If your coin total is mudded after Team of the Year and you want to get some back, make sure you check out MMOXP.com. Their link is down in the description. They're very fast, they're very cheap, they're very reliable, and if you use my code Rema, you can get 5% off all your orders. This supports the channel greatly, and I do very much appreciate it. So what's up guys, my name's Ash and welcome back to a brand new video. In today's video guys, I've got some custom tactics and player instructions for the 4-4-2, which I think is the best defensive formation in FIFA 23. But just before we get into today's video guys, I'd very much appreciate it if you could drop this video a thumbs up, so that does really help with the YouTube search algorithm. Also subscribe to the channel if you are new so you never miss out on any videos like this one, and don't forget to turn on notifications so you are notified when a video is posted. And with all that aside guys, let's get right into today's video. Okay guys, so starting off with the defensive style, I like to use this on balance. This is so you have the greatest control over your defense, where you're able to press when you need to press and you're able to drop off when you need to be a little bit more conservative. With a formation like the 4-4-2, you don't want to be constantly pressing because it is defensively solid even when you don't press, so it's nice to have a bit of a balance with this formation. Now moving on to the defensive width, I have this on 40. This is because the 4-4-2 already has some natural width with the way it's set up, with the 4 defenders and the 4 midfielders and the 2 strikers. You already have a bit of nice width in the pitch, so you don't need to up the width super high. It's important we cover those central areas and we primarily defend in a narrow way. I know people like to go for those cutbacks, but it honestly doesn't matter how high your width is, people will still find a way to do those cutbacks. So it's better to have a lower width so you can at least block those passes out through the middle. Now moving on to the depth guys, I have this on 55. This is because it's a very nice balance. Your defensive line isn't sat too deep, so you're not constantly getting pinned back, and it's also not super high up the pitch, so you're not getting through balled all the time either. So it's a nice middle ground where, you know, your defensive line sits in a very nice area. Now moving on to build up play guys, I suggest balance. This is just because, as the name suggests, it is the most balanced. It's very good for a formation like the 4-4-2, one that is quite flat. You don't want to use something like fast build up, as your team gets pulled all over the place and you can't really build up the play very well. So I do suggest balance with a formation like the 4-4-2. Now moving on to chance creation guys, as always I suggest direct passing. This is because if you look at the diagram in the bottom right hand corner of the screen, you can see the white dots, which are your attackers. They're constantly moving around in that dynamic motion to break through that defensive line, so it is the best way for you guys to create chances. If you look at something like balance, they're very static, they don't really move around and they don't bother that defense, so very important that you do use direct passing, otherwise you'll find it very difficult to create those chances. Now moving on to the width guys, I have this on 45 because the 4-4-2 does have a bit of width to it. It is obviously one of the wider formations with the left mid and the right mid, so I like to have this on 45 because I don't want my left mid and right mid to be pushed out super wide. I still want them to sit in a slightly narrow position so they can get more involved, so I found a good balance in having this on 45 where the left mid and right mid aren't sat too wide, but they're also not too narrow either. Now moving on to players in box guys, I have this bang in the middle on 5. This is because it's the most balanced, where you get some players into the box but you also have an equal amount of players outside the box, so you know, when you lose the ball you don't get counter attacked as easily, so I like to have this on 5 for the balance. Now for corners and free kicks, I have these both on 1 because I actually have a corner kick routine that I use where I don't actually cross the ball. If you guys are interested in checking that out, there is a link in the top right hand corner of the screen where you guys can see that video, and yeah, that's it for the custom tactics. Now moving on to the players you want to use guys, in the striker positions I suggest going for a bit of a balance between the 2 players. I like having one more poacher striker and one more creative striker. This is just so you have a bit more variety in attack, because if you use like 2 lengthy strikers, for example, ones that are just good at running, you're not really going to be able to create many attacks between the 2. There's not going to be much chemistry there, so I like to go for a creative finisher dynamic where Jairzinho can sometimes act as another playmaker and Robbie Keane can act as a sole finisher. Now for the left mid and right mid, sorry I misclicked there, for the left mid and right mid you want to use winger style players. You don't need to worry about their defensive stats because they're only there to add defensive cover. Their sole purpose isn't just to defend, so you want to use really good winger players, ones that are quick, ones that are able to dribble, ones that have skills if you can get them, and like obviously they're able to cross and shoot. Basically just really good winger players, so I'm just using Di Maria and Chiesa at the moment. Now in the left centre mid spot, you're going to want to use more of a defensive midfielder, a CDM if you like, and which I'm using Jorginho. You want somebody with a medium high work rate if you can get get it, because it means you get the maximum contribution in defense from this player, and they're not too bothered about attack, which is super important. So go for a very defensive player in this left centre mid spot. Now in the right centre mid spot, I like to go for a more box to box midfielder, so I'm using the flashback Paul Pogba. He's got very well rounded stats, which means he's going to be good at attacking and defending, and if you can get it, a high work rate, super useful, because you're going to get the maximum contributions in attack and defense. But for example, this Pogba is a high medium and he still does the job, so work rates are kind of just something you should aim for, but don't worry too much if you can't get the perfect one. Now for the fullbacks, I like to go for a bit of a balance between the two, where I've got one more technical player on the ball, which is Roberto Carlos, somebody that will be able to, you know, maybe pass out the back, or, you know, dribble technically to help us move up the field, just one of those types of players. And then we have a more defensively sound fullback in Cafu, so we have a nice balance between the two fullbacks here. This is kind of just a preference thing. If you want to go for 2 defensive fullbacks or 2 attacking fullbacks, that is completely up to you. As for the centre backs and goalkeeper, these just need to be as good as you can get them, and yet again, Chesney is still in goal for that chemistry. Now moving on to player instructions, guys. On the left striker, the more poacher striker, we have stay central, get in behind and come back on defence. So we have him on stay central because we don't need him drifting off into the wide areas, as we've already got Di Maria on that side, so we don't need him to go there. We need him to stay central, we need him to be in those finishing areas, and for attacking runs we have get in behind, because we do want this player to make those runs. He's the finisher of the team, so we do need him to make those runs, so he's always getting the best chances possible. We also have him on come back on defence, because this isn't to park the bus, it's just so your team is closer together. So when you lose the ball, having him on come back on defence means he's going to sit closer to the rest of your team, so when you win the ball back, it's a bit easier to build the play up. If you have him on basic defensive support in this formation, your 2 strikers can feel very disconnected from the rest of the team, which is why I suggest come back on defence. Now on the right striker, the more creative striker, we have stay central, mix attack and come back on defence. Stay central, again, we don't need this player drifting off to the wings, we've already got Chiesa there, so we need him to stay central. We have him on mixed attack because we don't just want this player to run in behind to finish chances. Sometimes we need him to sit a little bit deeper, so we could even create for like Robbie Keane. So yeah, mixed attack works very well on the more creative player. And we also have come back on defense again, so they sit in a better position when we lose the ball, and it's a bit easier to build up the play when we do go forward as a result. Now for the left mid and the right mid, we have come back on defense, getting behind and get into the box for cross. Come back on defense just means they sit in a better position when we lose the ball. It's really so, you know, we do actually keep that proper 4-4-2 shape, because sometimes if you have basic defensive support, it'll feel more like a 4-2-4 when you've lost the ball, or a 4-2-2, and you don't really want that. You want it to be as defensively solid as you can. So come back on defense, super important on the right mid and left mid. Getting behind is just so you get the most out of these players, otherwise they're kind of a bit static and they don't really move that much. So getting behind really does help the attacking side, and I do suggest it on both of these players. And also get into the box for cross is super good, because it means they will make those transitional runs into the box to get more involved. Doesn't mean you have to cross the ball to them, it just means they get more involved in the attack, so they really assist you a lot better. So come back on defense, get in behind and get into the box for cross for both the right mid and the left mid. Now for the left centre mid, the more defensive midfielder, we have stay back while attacking, stay on the edge of the box for cross and cover centre. We have him on stay back, which is pretty self-explanatory. We don't need this player to go forward. We have him on stay on the edge of the box for cross, because in case, you know, he does go up the pitch automatically or something like that, we don't want him to get into the box. We'd rather him just sit on the outside, so, you know, it's just a bit more defensive, and if we lose the ball, we're not going to get counter-attacked. And we also have him on cover centre, so he does cover those central areas, because we don't need him to cover those wings. Now for the right centre mid, the more box-to-box player, we have completely default settings and then cover centre. This is because we don't want to restrict this player too much, because he's meant to do a bit of everything. He's more of a transitional player from defence to attack, so yeah, he has a bit more freedom in this team if you like. And we also have him on cover centre again, because we don't need this player to cover the wings. We've already got 2 players for that, and yeah, we need him to cover those central areas. Now for both fullbacks, I have stay back while attacking, because the 4-4-2 is already a pretty wide formation, so you don't really need assistance from the fullbacks, because I mainly use fullbacks to attack when I'm using a more narrow formation to add that extra width. But in the 4-4-2, you don't really need that, so we have him on stay back while attacking just to make it as defensively sound as as possible. As for the centre backs and goalkeeper, I just leave them alone, and there is no settings changes there. But yeah guys, they are my custom tactics and player instructions for the 4-4-2, my favourite defensive formation in the game. If you guys have enjoyed or found this useful, I'd very much appreciate it if you could drop it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you are new so you never miss out on any videos like this one, and don't forget to turn on notifications so you are notified when a video is posted. And with all that aside guys, I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, and I'll catch you all later. Peace.